Classroom assessment. Why, what, how, and when. According to Carol Tomlinson, assessment is today's means of modifying tomorrow's instruction. It is an integral part of teaching learning process. It is widely accepted the effectiveness of teaching learning process is directly influenced by assessment. Hamida 2010 developed a framework to answer the why, what, how, and when to assess. This is helpful in understanding the true nature of this concept. Why to assess? Teachers have clear goals for instruction and they assess to ensure that these goals have been or are being met. If objectives are the destination, instruction is the path to it, then assessment is a tool to keep the efforts on track and to ensure that the path is right. After the completion of journey, assessment is the indication that destination is ahead. 6. What to assess? Teachers cannot assess whatever they themselves like. In classroom assessment, teachers are supposed to assess students' current abilities in a given skill or task. The teacher can assess students' knowledge, skills, or behavior related to a particular field. Who to assess? It may seem strange to ask whom a teacher should assess in the classroom, but the issue is of great concern. Teachers should treat students as real learners, not as course or unit coverers. They should also predict that some students are more active and some are less active. Some are quick at learning and some are slow at it. Therefore, classroom assessment calls for a prior realistic appraisal of the individuals teachers are going to assess. How to assess? Teachers employ different instruments, formal or informal, to assess their students. Brown and Hudson 1998 reported that teachers use three sorts of assessment methods: selected response assessments, constructed response assessments, and personal response assessments. They can adjust the assessment types to what they are going to assess. When to assess? There is a strong agreement of educationists that assessment is interwoven into instruction. Teachers continue to assess the students' learning throughout the process of teaching. They particularly do formal assessments when they are going to make instructional decisions at the formative and summative levels, even if those decisions are small. For example, they assess when there is a change in the content, when there is a shift in pedagogy, when the effect of the given materials or curriculum on the learning process is examined. How much to assess? There is no touchstone to weigh the degree to which a teacher should assess students. But it doesn't mean that teachers can evaluate their students to the extent that they prefer. It is generally agreed that as students differ in ability, learning styles, interests and needs etc., so assessment should be limited to every individual's needs, ability and knowledge. Teachers' careful and wise judgment in this regard can prevent teachers from over-assessment or under-assessment of assessment as coach and facilitator. The teacher uses formative assessment to help support and enhance student learning. As judge and jury, the teacher makes summative judgments about a student's achievement. Assessment is a purposeful activity aiming to facilitate students' learning and to improve the quality of instruction, based upon the functions that it performs. Assessment is generally divided into three types: assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning. 7. Assessment for learning. Formative assessment. Assessment for learning is a continuous and an ongoing assessment that allows teachers to monitor students on a day-to-day basis and modify their teaching based on what the students need to be successful. This assessment provides students with the timely, specific feedback that they need to enhance their learning. The essence of formative assessment is that the information yielded by this type of assessment is used on one hand to make immediate decisions and on the other hand, based upon this information, timely feedback is provided to the students to enable them to learn better. If the primary purpose of assessment is to support high-quality learning, then formative assessment ought to be understood as the most important assessment practice. Assessment for learning has many unique characteristics. For example, this type of assessment is taken as practice. Learners should not be graded for skills and conception have been just introduced. They should be given opportunities to practice. Formative assessment helps teachers to determine next steps during the learning process as the instruction approaches the summative assessment of student learning. A good analogy for this is the road test that is required to receive a driver's license. Before the final driving test, or summative assessment, a learner practices by being assessed again and again to point out the deficiencies in the skill. Another distinctive characteristic of formative assessment is student involvement. If students are not involved in the assessment process, formative assessment is not practiced or implemented to its full effectiveness. One of the key components of engaging students in the assessment of their own learning is providing them with descriptive feedback as they learn. In fact, research shows descriptive feedback to be the most significant instructional strategy to move students forward in their learning. Descriptive feedback provides students with an understanding of what they are doing well. It also gives input in how to reach the next step in the learning process. Role of assessment for learning and instructional process can be best understood with the help of following diagram. And tasks can help teacher to identify if students are on task or need clarification. Observations assist teachers in gathering evidence of student learning to inform instructional planning. Questioning strategies. Asking better questions allows an opportunity for deeper thinking and provides teachers with significant insight into the degree and depth of understanding. Questions of this nature engage students in classroom dialogue that both uncovers and expands learning. Self and peer assessment. When students have been involved in criteria and goal setting, self-evaluation is a logical step in the learning process. With peer evaluation, students see each other as resources for understanding and checking for quality work against previously established criteria. Student record keeping. It also helps the teachers to assess beyond a grade, to see where the learner started and the progress they are making towards the learning goals.